The Ford Mustang Convertible has always been more than just a car. It's an idea, a promise, the kind of machine people imagine before they ever sit behind the wheel. Roof down, engine humming, road stretching endlessly ahead. For decades, that image sold the dream better than any spec sheet ever could. But lately, that dream has been questioned. Some say the Mustang Convertible lost its edge. Others say it finally became honest about what it was always meant to be. And that disagreement is exactly where the story begins. From the moment the first Mustang Convertible rolled onto the streets, it wasn't trying to dominate racetracks. It was selling freedom, open air, visibility, presence. You didn't buy it to shave seconds off a lap time. You bought it because people noticed when you drove by. Movies, commercials, coastal highways, city nights. The Mustang Convertible became the version you pictured when someone said American car culture. It was loud without trying, confident without explanation, and for a long time that was enough. But emotional appeal has a shelf life. As performance numbers became bragging rights and online debates replaced real conversations, the Mustang Convertible slowly became an easy target. Hardcore fans started to turn cold. They didn't say it outright at first, but the message was clear: too heavy, too flexible, too soft. In their eyes, cutting the roof off a muscle car meant cutting its spine, and once that idea took hold, it never really went away. What made it worse was that the convertible couldn't defend itself on paper. Less rigidity, more weight, slightly slower times. Those details mattered more and more in a world obsessed with numbers. The coupe became the real Mustang. The convertible became the compromise, the fun version, the weekend toy. And slowly, the respect gap grew wider, not because the car failed, but because expectations changed. Then the world shifted again. Emissions rules tightened. Electrification crept into every conversation. Buyers stopped caring about raw power alone. Suddenly, nobody was asking how loud a car was. They were asking how livable it felt. Comfortable interiors, screens, driver assists, daily usability. And right in the middle of that transition sat the Mustang Convertible, caught between its rebellious past and a polished future it didn't ask for. For older fans, it felt unfamiliar. The car they remembered was rough around the edges, heavy steering, imperfect panels. That rawness was part of the charm, but newer buyers didn't want nostalgia, they wanted experience. And Ford noticed. Instead of fighting the shift, they leaned into it. The Mustang Convertible started changing its priorities. Less aggression, more refinement, better interiors, more tech, more comfort. And that decision quietly split the audience in two. Some saw it as a betrayal, a muscle car becoming too clean, too modern, too safe. The phrase "not a real Mustang anymore" started floating around again, louder than before. But others saw something different. They saw a car that finally understood its role, a machine that wasn't pretending to be something it wasn't. Because here's the truth nobody likes to admit: the Mustang Convertible was never built to intimidate. It was built to be enjoyed. And that's where the controversy deepens. Because while critics complained, the car kept showing up, on streets, on highways, in cities where convertibles were supposed to be dead. At a time when brands were quietly killing open-top models, the Mustang Convertible survived. Not loudly, not aggressively, but consistently. And that survival raised an uncomfortable question. What if the people complaining weren't the ones keeping it alive? Sales numbers didn't scream dominance, but they didn't collapse either. And in a market where convertibles are disappearing entirely, simply existing is a statement. The Mustang Convertible didn't win by being extreme. It won by being accessible, familiar, emotional. And that balance between criticism and quiet demand only made its identity more confusing. Because if performance defines a Mustang, the convertible falls short. But if feeling defines it, then things get complicated. And that leads directly into the debate nobody can agree on: what actually makes a Mustang anymore? The question that keeps coming back is simple but uncomfortable. What actually makes a Mustang a Mustang? Is it raw power, noise, straight-line speed, or is it something less measurable, something you feel before you ever press the throttle? The Mustang Convertible forces that question into the open because it removes the one thing people hide behind most: the roof. There's nowhere to escape the experience. You hear everything, you feel everything. And that exposure changes how the car is judged. For some, that openness is exactly the problem. Without the roof, flaws feel louder, the road feels closer, the car feels less aggressive, less insulated, less intimidating. And to purists, intimidation has always been part of the Mustang myth. A car that announces itself before it arrives, a car that demands attention, but the convertible doesn't demand, it invites. And that difference is subtle, but it's everything. Because when you stop chasing dominance, a different kind of value appears. The Mustang Convertible doesn't ask you to prove anything. It doesn't care about lap times or online arguments. It's designed for moments, not metrics. Late-night drives, coastal roads, city streets where sound echoes off buildings. It's not trying to overpower the environment, it's trying to connect you to it. And in a world that's becoming quieter, cleaner, and more controlled, that kind of connection is rare. This is where Ford's gamble becomes clear. Instead of chasing purists who were already halfway out the door, they leaned into the people who actually drive, the ones who want comfort without losing character, the ones who want style without apology, the ones who don't need a car to scare them to enjoy it. And slowly, the Mustang Convertible became something unexpected, a refuge from extremes. Of course, that shift didn't silence criticism. If anything, it fueled it. Online debates intensified. Comparisons became harsher. It's not aggressive enough. It's too refined. It feels like a lifestyle product now. But those arguments miss one key detail. The Mustang Convertible was always a lifestyle product. It just didn't admit it out loud. And maybe that honesty is what unsettles people most. Because when you remove the myth, you're left with reality. And the reality is this: the convertible version exposes the Mustang's identity crisis more than any coupe ever could. It can't hide behind stiffness or track numbers. It lives or dies by emotion alone. And surprisingly, that vulnerability is what keeps it relevant. At a time when cars are becoming appliances, silent, efficient, forgettable, the Mustang Convertible still creates memories. You remember where you were, who you were with, what the air felt like. And that kind of imprint doesn't show up on a dyno chart. It shows up years later, when people talk about the car they wish they never sold. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this kind of deep dive into iconic convertibles and the stories behind them, don't forget to subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and it makes sure you don't miss what's coming next. Now here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. The Mustang Convertible survives because it doesn't try to win every argument. It accepts that some people will never respect it, that some fans will always see it as the soft version. And instead of fighting that label, it leans into what it does best: escape. Not rebellion, not domination, escape. And that's why the car feels different now. It reflects the era it exists in. People aren't looking for chaos anymore. They're looking for moments of control, small freedoms, experiences that feel personal in a world that feels automated. The Mustang Convertible doesn't scream against the future, it coexists with it. Will it ever win back purists? Probably not, but it doesn't need to. Its value isn't in approval, it's in presence. In being one of the last cars that still encourages you to slow down, look around, and feel the drive instead of measuring it. And maybe that's the real reason the debate never ends. Because the Mustang Convertible forces people to confront what they actually want from a car: power or memory, image or experience, numbers or emotion. And as long as that question exists, the Mustang Convertible will keep its place on the road,